Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Uncuckables for another Thursday evening. It is just past 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time here on it's 1 week here since the second Melbourne lockdown. There's no Dave tonight, no XYZ representation, but we've just got just a bigger, fiery and Uncuckables panel. Of course, I'm Tim Wilms from The Unshackled, and we've got in the top left there, Stephen Wells from the isolated free state of West Australia.
Nice to be here.
And we've got down below Richard Wolstencroft, host of the Report from Tiger Mountain and director of the Melbourne Underground Film Festival. How are you?
Very good. Good evening. What's going on?
Well, we're both Melburnians, so what's it been like 1 week on for you? I know that I've still got, I call it Feel Crap 20 virus.
Well, Dictator Dan's grounded us all again, so we're all, stuck in our homes again,
You are grounded for not following what I say.
Well, it wasn't us, it was those Black Lives Matter protesters and the people at the Housing Commission flats who work in security at the hotel. So they seem to have been the cause of this, and they obviously kept the Black Lives Matter element of it I knew there was a media cover-up. I just did a report on it last week, and we released it today. And now it's obviously the Age is still sort of not really covering that, but it's been in the Australian, it's been in the Herald Sun, it's been in a lot of other major, it's been Channel 7 News. I sort of did an article on it. So obviously mainstream media have covered that was one of the sources. And, there was an article that said there were 0 cases in Victoria and basically it had practically gone away. And then that weekend it was coming, this thing, and it just seemed like the most terrible idea to do a mass protest in the middle of a pandemic, regardless of what we all think of it. It was a terrible idea, I think. And it went ahead, it was absolutely ridiculous. And there you go, so we went from 0 to where we are now, supposedly anyway.
And now we've also got virus cancel 20, which of course was triggered by the Black Lives Matter 2.0, which of course was triggered by the death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police. And
forgotten about him. I mean, who ever remembers that fucking guy now? I mean, there's been at least 100 other people killed, 200 or 300 probably. There's been I don't know how many white people I've seen get bashed on Facebook. It just seems to be open season on whitey over in America at the moment. I mean, it seems to be descending into almost South Africa type situation. Obviously, it's been only temporary. Trump is re-establishing order at the moment, particularly after he crushed Chaz. But go ahead.
Yep, Stephen, unlike Victoria, Western Australia is still no active cases in the community, no community transmission, though your Premier, dear leader over there, Mark McGowan, he's delayed the introduction of stage 5 to a COVID-safe Australia. We have Daniel Andrews over here has stages into lockdown, and then Scott Morrison had the stages out of lockdown. There were 3 stages out of lockdown, and WA has now invented a 4th, and they've invented a 5th.
Wow.
Well, yeah, they'll just keep it rolling along. We've actually got new cases in WA. Apparently, some people came back in from overseas, and they're now locked down in a hotel. So we can expect them to have sex with security guards very shortly, and to start the ball rolling all over here again. I find it interesting that you can go from 0 cases to millions of cases. Like, I thought the whole point of a infectious disease that you needed at least one person to have an infection to be able to spread it to the next person. So I wonder where the ground zero was in Melbourne. Which Black Lives Matter protester had it?
Yes.
Because obviously, But I mean, to me, I'm just over the whole thing. I don't believe anything anymore. It could be, the virus could be real. It could be all made up for all I know.
Oh, we lost you there, Stephen.
All I know is that from the start, the lockdowns were complete and utter bullshit and should never have been allowed. And the only thing I have to say about Dan Andrews' hypocrisy on Black Lives Matter protests is that it should give us all free rein to ignore him completely. And anybody who is Andrews at the moment examined, you should all and imprisonment and gulag. You should definitely not be complying with it.
We keep losing you there, Stephen. I know that Victoria Police, what is that, last Friday, the Police Commissioner Shane Patton gave all Victorians a spray about the people who were doing stupid things in his view. There was that party that Victoria Police busted with in Dandenong. They purchased 20 KFC meals.
That was. I think someone saw them. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think it was somebody working at the KFC decided to dob them in.
No, it was an ambulance nearby.
Was an ambulance nearby? Oh well, whoever it was. Speaking for snitching such a grass.
It's amazing how quickly we've gone from living in basically a free country to living in the USSR. I think the amazing that we're now living in a totalitarian government, and not a shot was fired, not a protest against it really. You know, only protests that seem to spread it. You know, I mean, my whole suspicion about the Black Lives Matter thing is that it was basically the protests were timed to create the second spike. You know, because just as the virus, the first wave, was sort of beginning to fade, that was when the Black Lives Matter protest happened, and everyone took to the streets. Of course, the idiot white liberals who go along with that. Oh, here we go.
Well, there's been having trouble with your videos here. You should be all coming back on shortly.
That's got to be the cabal, mate, doesn't it?
It's not the worst that's happened. Stephen, are you back?
I'm back.
Back? We can hear you. I can't see you, but I think hearing is
I can see him.
Is more believing at the moment.
Oh, this is Dictator Dan's clearly onto you, Tim. He's watching this. No, this is no good.
Just on the point of how it was timed, I mean, if you look at Neil Ferguson's plan for dealing with coronavirus, we're pretty much following that timetable in terms of having a hard lockdown, gradually coming out of it, and then going back into it again. And it seems to be that the reasons for doing so may have changed, but they're holding to the plan regardless. So going back into full lockdown by July, August was on that document for the second lockdown. So nothing really surprises me anymore that they've found an excuse to go into it.
Of course, and it's amazing the way, I mean, I think ScoMo's resisting locking down Australia at a federal level, and obviously Trump in America has resisted locking down again, and he said he isn't. But someone like Daniel Andrews, you can just tell who's working for the kind of 1984 agenda and who's, well, at least resisting it or rebelling against it. So, you know, I mean, it's all there kind of laid out, really, isn't it? Obviously, Dan Andrews is clearly in with China. I mean, it's not even hidden. He's got that Belt and Road deal, and he couldn't get cozier with China. He's cozier with China than he is with Australians, as far as I can tell. You know, he hasn't even spoken to the opposition leader. It was an article, and he said he hadn't spoken to the opposition leader in 3 or 4 months in the middle of a pandemic. Wouldn't you reach across the aisle to try and, you know, I mean, I don't know, get some kind of bipartisan collaboration going?
Well, he doesn't need to, because he's got a majority in the lower house and can get the crossbenchers working with him in the upper house.
There you go. So, you know, Dictator Dan, that's why they call him that. I mean, can the Governor General, can he sack a Premier? Can Premiers be sacked by the Governor General?
Well, Victoria has a governor who's the Queen's representative.
So he could sack him technically, couldn't he?
Hypothetically, yes, but we just had, well, a reminder of how controversial it is for a Queen's representative to dismiss an elected
it's definitely great to get
head of government.
Gough Whitlam was sus as a fucking $3 bill, that motherfucker. He brought in like the Lima agreements, which, you know, took our industry overseas. You appointed Al Grasby, you brought in multiculturalism, which was obviously fair enough.
This reminds me of the XYZ conference when the Zoom audio kept messing up.
What are you saying, Tim?
This reminds me of the XYZ conference when the audio kept messing up.
Are we still breaking up, are we?
Yeah. There is the option of going to Skype. I know that you two have got Skype.
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Yeah. All right. Why don't we take a break and come back?
This message from our sponsors. Here at the Trump campaign, Trump 2020. No.
And we're back on air. Well, at least myself, Tim, and Richard Wolstencroft are here. Boomer Tech, Stephen Wells, we're still waiting on him because apparently it's really complicated for him to switch over from from Zoom to Skype. Everyone back in the chat, can you see us again? Give us a shout out. And I also haven't mentioned yet, please join us over on Entropy, the YouTube enhanced software, which I've put in the YouTube chat and also in the DLive chat as well. Stephen.
Sorry, had to update the app. I hadn't used it for so long.
This is going to be a bit, but crystal clear sound again. So I made the right judgment call, as it's called.
Yes, one. Well, a short interruption. You know.
Now we just have lagged video.
Do we?
I do. Don't worry.
All right.
I'm meant to look like this.
Well, make sure you stay within the screen because I've had to crop you both here in the screen. But where were we? We were with Dictator Dan Andrews. Well,
it's our favorite.
Yeah, the reason why I think that he's shut it all down again is because it's pretty clear that he can't keep up with the contact tracing, and as we've seen, the not just the hotel quarantine turned into a bungle and is the most likely source of the second wave, but now hospital staff are getting infected, and even police officers now. 170 police officers had to self-isolate in the past week, and then we also have 150 hospital staff in isolation. And what's the point of quarantine facilities if the people who are supposed to be in quarantine they're infecting the people who are supposed to be enforcing that quarantine?
Very good question.
Yeah. It's all complete and utter madness. It's all a farce. It's been a farce from the start. I'm just surprised that nurses and police officers have taken so long to finally get infected. I mean, the first wave that they called it, police officers were all around the world were going up to people without their masks on and hassling people on park benches and having less social distancing than all of the rest of the public combined, and yet not a single one of them seemed to get sick, and now all of a sudden all of them are getting sick at once. It's just all crap as far as I'm concerned. And the main thing I know about it is when we look at the actual statistics of who's supposedly dying from this thing, it's not anybody who's healthy. So all of these police officers, I'm assuming, are completely and utterly safe. All of these nurses are completely and utterly safe, unless they are, obese fat slobs who shouldn't be in the jobs that they're in the first place. Because, even Mark Latham, we finally got at least one politician, mainstream politician, coming out and pointing out the bloody obvious that of the 100 and however many it is now, 809 people who have died, the median age of people dying in Australia is 77. In Italy, it's 80. In the US, it's 80. Of the people who have died, only 2 under the age of 60 have died, and pretty much everyone who's died has had some pretty serious underlying health condition. And then we've also got doctors in the US now saying we found a treatment for asthma works 100% of the time at stopping people from dying. So it's all a big beat up. We don't need any of this crap. We never needed it. We've never done any of this sort of thing before. We've never ever locked down healthy people in history. We can go back into biblical times and we don't see the sort of shit going on. Yet all of a sudden everyone's just rolled over and said, "Oh yes, it makes perfect sense. Oh, we must have always done this." You know, they've gone down the memory hole. You know, that's
what's extraordinary about this event. And I mean, and that's the thing we need to take note is like, and to the amount of people that are going along with it, obviously it's both sides of government. I mean, even people who I guess we are fans of on the new right, people like Trump and Boris Johnson, people like that, they're going along with it. I mean, everyone is going along with it. I mean, maybe to a certain extent, they've had this dumped in their lap, and maybe to begin with, they weren't aware of what's going on. Because, you know, I imagine, you know, you often wonder, for example, the Liberal Party in Canberra, it often seems to pay a lot of attention to what you would call it, like, you know, social justice warrior issues and kind of language policing and all that kind of stuff that you think a proper right-winger would just offhandedly reject. Someone like Tony Abbott used to reject it. Why are they going along with it? This is what's so strange. What do you think, Steve? Why are they doing it?
Controlled opposition is what I think.
So you think they're all part of a giant conspiracy? But how do you keep a conspiracy that large? I mean, you know, that involves doctors and people at hospitals. Like, you know, I know doctors, they seem to go along with it. I don't believe they're involved in a conspiracy.
It's not my view. It's not conspiracy. It's just a complete overreaction. Overreaction is probably not but as people have been saying, the cure is worse than the disease. We have a flu season every year. The last season was
1,200 a year.
Yeah, it was one of the deadliest. 900 people died. So it's a overreaction in proportion to the threat.
Would you agree with that, Steve?
Well, obviously that. I mean, when it comes to conspiracies don't operate by everybody being in on it. Conspiracies operate by a couple of people having an idea and then everybody else going along with it for personal reasons, selfish reasons, ignorant reasons. So it's not like everybody's in the know, but there is definitely some element in there. You can look back at the documents going back to 2010 of the lockstep simulation that was done from the Rockefeller Institute, where it basically simulated the whole event. And there's been lots of funding from these groups basically into all of the academia to study what would be the effect of a hard lockdown. In my book, I've listed 50 such studies that have been conducted over the last 10 years. And that's been funded by somebody. And basically what happens when it comes to then implementing something like this, and a government advisor whose only job is to say, well, these are the studies we have available, and therefore our advice is this. Well, if the only studies that have been funded looking into how to deal with a pandemic have all been funded in a way in which to look at hard lockdowns, well, the only sources of information that a bureaucrat will be able to give to the government will be the ones that have been pushing this narrative. So
yes, exactly.
It's not the case that all the bureaucrats are in on it, and no, it's just that all the bureaucrats, all they are told to do, their directive, their job description is simply, your job is to look at peer-reviewed studies and only peer-reviewed studies, and then from peer-reviewed studies, give the government advice on the peer review. Now, if all the peer review in the past 10 years has been funded on the narrative of have been funded on with the skew of what happened, how would a hard lockdown affect the world, and nobody else has even been looking into pandemics because nobody's been interested in it, nobody's interested in funding in it. If the only people who have been interested in funding it have an idea and a desire to have a hard lockdown on the world, then that's the only information that government officials will have to access when it comes to times like this. And then a politician, on the other hand, and he's trying to make decisions. He has no clue about pandemics or anything like that, but he's got all of these so-called top health experts telling him, this is what you need to do. It's a bloody brave politician who's going to stand up against that and say, no, you're full of shit, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly what's happened. And it's essentially a globalist operation, because people are, I mean, obviously it's a combination of globalism and the globalists and what's going on in China and the Chinese government. And they seem to be connected, because, I mean, I seem to detect the plan of the globalists is to kind of destabilize and eventually destroy Western civilization and to replace it with China. So now you're really seeing the fangs come out, so to speak, in many ways.
It's to crush the people, the common person.
Absolutely.
They're free spirits. And I liked it because we've been hearing about mask mania, I call it, this week. Stephen, on your Facebook account, you shared a good mask in the shape of a sheep's head. But we're also now the news. I've noticed I get so angry when I watch it now, because it's always pushing for stage 4 in Victoria, even though Daniel Andrews said today it was too early to consider that. Even after he said that, finally sort of ruled it out for now, they still ran with it. Mandating masks, that's another push, and also a elimination should be pursued over suppression. Apparently suppression has failed.
Yeah, well, I mean, they haven't even followed their own, haven't even followed Neil Ferguson's plan, have they? The whole idea of Neil Ferguson's plan was that it would wax and wane over the next few years until a magic vaccine came along to save us all. So you know, they couldn't even, they weren't even patient enough just to do that. It's like, oh no, like we've noticed just how easily people fell into this. Well, let's push a little harder. You know, if people are asking to fuck, then let's fuck them.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's you know, that's the thing with these things. You know, like they push it as far as they think they can get away with it, and then they roll back a bit, and then they think, well, that worked. Let's see if we can push it a little harder. Obviously, this lockdown in Victoria is a little harder. It hasn't gone to stage 4 yet, but it's certainly been like, for example, there have been police, you know, going out of Melbourne. You know, like if you wanted to go to your country house or down to the
Checkpoint
peninsula,
Charlies, I call them.
Yeah, I have family friends who have these houses, and you know, I can access them, and I can go holiday there if I want. And you know, that's a nice thing to do right now, right? Get away, but you can't do that. Well, why would getting away to like a country town where you're going to spend your time in a beach house, away from everybody else, but in here we're all crammed together, and you go to the local Coles, it's got 200 or 300 people in it. You know, this is great. You know, it is a psyop, and it's the biggest psyop in history as far as I can see.
Yeah, my wife's busy reading 1984. I've just grabbed hold of a copy of Albert Huxley's Brave New World again, and it's like a melding of the two, really, isn't it? It's just, but
and a number of other things like film like They Live, the famous John Carpenter film from the 1980s, and there's elements of The Matrix, there's elements of numerous dystopian sci-fi films. I mean, that's the weird thing, and people notice it too. And I think it's across politics, people notice, even people on the left. A lot of people on the left, because I'm in the film industry, and I have a lot of left-wing friends who are very tolerant of me, obviously. But there's still a few tolerant left-wing people left. It's surprised to know. But like, they're all like, write me things like, it's very 1984. They're all very suspicious of this, you know, and as they should be. I mean, if you follow left-wing philosophy, you're supposed to mistrust powerful entities and powerful bodies. And these are the people telling us all what to do, and it's deeply suspicious.
Yeah, it's nuts. And yeah, it's almost like we've watched so many of these movies and become desensitized to so many of these movies that when it's actually happening for real, people just seem to think, oh, I must be in some kind of a movie. Oh, I'll just watch and see how this plays out. You know.
Well, that's predictive programming to a certain extent. But I think people really are sick of it, and but it is extraordinary. But yeah, I think you're right. You made a good point that, you know, like, you know, people like Dan Andrews aren't in on it as such, but they're just being given this information. Maybe Daniel Andrews is on it. We don't know. But
he definitely does like control. We've known that for a while.
And
he might just be somebody who might not be in on like the whole globalist scheme or something.
Yeah.
He's just somebody who thinks, well, fuck me, I'm able to take control here. I like power. I'll exercise this power, and I'll do it for those reasons. Those reasons are good enough for me.
And that's why he earns the name Dictator Dan, because he instantly kind of latched on it like a kind of like lower level Chinese Communist Party apparatchik. You know what I mean? So and that's the weird thing too, because I know you've written a book on climate change. There's a kind of interesting kind of symmetry between the climate change agenda and this virus agenda, because climate change was going to be a longer, even if we were to act on all the advice of climate change people, it was going to be a longer attack upon capitalism. This is a much more faster attack. It's almost as if they've dropped the climate change agenda, which they have in media. You'll notice in media, I've hardly heard mention of climate change this year, and yet this virus thing is like hyper climate change. And it's just the ABC in Australia, absolutely. They're in orgasms every day. They're like, oh, there's more coronavirus. Oh my God, it's like they're having,
Yeah, but
like
when the curve was
excited by it.
When the curve was flattening, that's when the news cycle, you began to see climate policy re-emerge. And when we had the Black Lives Matter rallies in Melbourne, there was an Extinction Rebellion protest. So they've got the backup crisis
ready.
Still. Yeah.
It's all an attack upon capitalism. It's all an attack upon liberty and freedom and the kind of things that we've come to appreciate in Western civilization since World War II. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, when it first came out, I just thought, my God, I was expecting to fight the climate change Nazis over the next 10 years for the Agenda 2030 plan, but it was just like climate change on steroids. All of a sudden they've got everything they want in one fell swoop. Air travel gone, bang, no more tourism, bang. Small business shut down, got that one in.
Cashless society,
cashless society, it's in. Well,
forced vaccinations,
that works. It was like, and all listen to a global organization and take only directives from them. Bang! So it was like a climate change. It was like Greta Thunberg's wet dream, basically, and that's why she ended up on a COVID expert panel not so long ago as well. So
I was hoping they were going to get her on a panel about Black Lives Matter. They may as well get the press.
Yeah, because Sweden is a successful multicultural experiment, so she could speak on that as well.
Yes. She could, and she's also the granddaughter or the great-granddaughter of Svante Arrhenius, who was the father of global warming and the greenhouse effect. He was the man who originally postulated the pseudoscience that if we put more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it was going to hold more energy. But what most people don't know, he was also the head of the Eugenics Society in Sweden as well.
What a combo!
For racial purity. So yeah, she would be a great one to talk on Black Lives Matter, because she is very much into not like we might be in terms of having a nation full of our own ethnicities, but they want obviously not just to have a nation of their own, but basically an upper class where races are put into a hierarchy of uses, and obviously the undesirable ones they just want to all murder off and genocide away, which is what we always get accused of, but is the exact opposite of what we want.
Exactly. It's the globalists who are the real Nazis of today. You know what I mean? And this is the thing I think both left and the right need to realize in many ways, like, because the Nazi and the racist accusation, is always being thrown at. And also, even on the far left, everyone on the far left is accused of being a Stalinist or a communist or whatever. But it's like the globalists; they are the ones who are the real threat. You know what I mean?
It's like there's elements in this Melbourne lockdown of a totalitarian regime where if you're out, the police can pull you over and say, what's your business? Papers, please.
Papers, please. It's very, it's very 1933, isn't it?
Very much so. It's also, the other side. We were tying to that Black Lives Matter thing. And,
bullshit. Yeah.
It's the globalists who pushed multiculturalism.
Of course.
It's the globalists who pushed mass immigration from diverse societies and get as much mixed race as possible.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's the globalists who are funding Black Lives Matter. And as much, so they bring them in deliberately so that they can stoke up, people's natural ethnic loyalties, and animosities.
Yeah, they want the fight. They want the destabilization. And they want the fight, and I even think that the far right is part of it in a way. Like, they love it all because they are dialectical. I mean, they have an iron in every fire, mate. You know what I mean? So they're all about each side's. That's why I think at a time like this we need. If the people, the elite, want us to be, at each other's throats, that's a good time not to be. You know what I mean? Like whatever they want, you should do the opposite. So now's a good time to really not be opposed to everybody and get along with people on the left, get along with people of different races in our countries, because the elite will be most upset that we're not murdering each other, because that's what they want. And if we don't do it, they'll be pissed off.
Social distancing doesn't mean anti-social distancing, and of course, in the mask mania and madness, that's when you see Karen wars in the supermarket and outside again. About that, I've talked about. There's two types of Karens. There's the pro-mask Karens, and then there's the anti-mask Karens. They're both as bad as each other when you should be respecting people's informed free choices about masks.
Oh, there are a lot of Karens around at the moment, that definitely. And there's a male Karen. What name should we come up with a male Karen? Like the lecturing kind of like beta male, like, oh, So I've been told off by a couple of those as well,
Oh, well, what'd you do?
It's very tedious. Oh, I don't know. God knows what. Just walk too closely to somebody and someone says something. It's like, what?
That's not social distancing.
Like, social distancing is about, if you noticed, it's about going forward. Like you social distance forward, but you can walk straight past somebody like a foot apart. That's okay. But like forward, you keep. It's so bizarre, as if the virus doesn't jump to the left or the right. It really is bullshit. And Stephen, I think you're spot on. You've written 2 books on this. Is that right? Have you got them here? Can you hold them up for us to have a look?
So the one on the climate change is called Confessions of a Climate Change Denier.
Very nice.
So it's me basically making fun of being funded by big oil. So I've got a little envelope of cash which says lots of love from big oil on it.
Yes, that's Photoshop, that cash. You don't have it.
Oh, I did have it. I got it out specifically for that, but then I spent it on booze straight afterwards. Don't worry. And then this one is a much more serious and anger-filled book, and shorter, luckily, as well, because you don't want to read too much serious, angry me ranting and raving. That's the great coronavirus swindle.
Right. They look great. You're great for the Christmas hamper this year,
Yeah.
What a year this is, isn't it? It's amazing to be living through this year. I've never seen a year like it. I mean, I've asked all my, older relations. They've never lived through anything like it as well. So, it's quite extraordinary.
What about I think nobody who grew up in the late 60s remembers the Hong Kong flu, which killed at least 1 million Americans.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't shut down the swinging 60s at all, didn't stop Woodstock. No,
that's right. They held Woodstock. And I mean, that goes to show, they've been slowly weakening our society since the early 70s. I mean, that's another part of the globalist plan. It's been an attack upon the family. It's been an attack upon, religious institutions, school institutions. They've done everything they can to weaken our society. And then they've got this kind of, internet thing to kind of, brainwash people to their message. And the globalists are having a wild time of it. But, I think people are waking up to it. There is a kind of great awakening going on. And it's good to see people resisting, because that's what we want. We want people to resist, and we want defectors, people who are part of the stupidity of the mainstream agenda to think, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
It was 100,000 that died in the US from the Hong Kong flu. I think it was...
Yeah, it was a million or 2 million worldwide, I believe it was.
Yes, which we're not at that yet with the coronavirus.
Well, we're nowhere near it. And also, you've got to remember, in 1968, there was 3.5 billion people on the planet, not 7.7 billion people on the planet. Exactly. Proportionally, it was equivalent of probably about 4 million people dying in that year.
it does feel like there's some kind of asymmetrical war going on. A friend of mine gave me a book that was kind of about China and asymmetrical war, and about how they were going to fight, like, you know, World War III, which we could well now be in. That it would be done through non-traditional methods. We should remember that 100 years ago, when we fought World War I and World War II, they were very different kinds of wars than were wars that were fought in the 19th century. So maybe we have, you know, maybe this is a bioweapon. I mean, I've considered that. I think it could be a mild bioweapon that was released from the Wuhan lab.
What happened? The WHO investigation has started now, but apparently they're not going to visit that actual Wuhan.
You're not going to visit Wuhan.
Yeah, we know that's
we're going to investigate the virus. We're just not going to go to where it supposedly started.
That sounds like maybe how Dan Andrews' judicial inquiry into the hotel quarantine program might work.
Yeah.
Are they going to get access to all the evidence, or is there are some people not going to be called? Are some documents not going to be provided? We have got a couple of questions on entropy
the stains on the hotel floors from the sex that was held there has probably been washed away by now. So
yeah,
evidence has probably gone. You know.
Deep cleaning. So we've got a few questions on entropy in a super chat. You can also participate in our poll. Which is the bigger threat? Is it coronavirus or cancel culture? Which is going to be the second half of the show, because, well, that seems to be the despite the second wave, the side effect from the Black Lives Matter rallies, cancel culture is still going. So
yes,
Bieber Anti-Pulling has said, Tim, when will you let Raymond speak? Let Raymond speak. Raymond needs practice for upcoming YouTube appearances. Let him know now. We want to hear him speak. That's Raymond Foster, runs the Australian Vanguard. I'll have a chat with Raymond after the show, see if we can get him on soon. I'm not sure. I know that he has a YouTube channel, which that he uploads a lot of content to. So I'll communicate with you after the show, and hopefully we can get you on next week. And we've got a super chat here from Peter Loves Triple Decker Butt Plugs, Australian $3.33. Piss Pants Peter Grace has been social distancing for a long time, not by choice. It's just nobody wants to hang around the old cunt because he stinks like urine. Thanks for that. Whoever this account is for that 333 super chat.
There we go.
I want to go back to Sweden, because Sweden is not all bad at the moment, is it, Stephen?
Yeah, what's going on there? How do you explain the reaction of Sweden? I mean, they didn't fully lock down. I mean, it seemed the way that they reacted was the right way to go. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, well, Sweden's basically debunked everything that you hear from our politicians, from America and from health officials everywhere else, is debunked, full stop, by Sweden. So their death rates, their daily death rates have gone right down. So an infection works in a parabola. It goes up, it peaks, it goes down and flattens out. Sweden's has flattened out now. More to the point, Sweden also just released their total deaths for 2020 up to this point in the year, and it's less than the total death toll for the past 5 years in a row. So they've had fewer deaths overall during this time than the past 5 years. So that basically tells you, if anybody who wants to say, well, is there anything to the claims that there is no virus at all, that there is nothing new, that we're just experiencing what we always experience?
Yeah, which is
that is very, very strong evidence, corollary evidence. Obviously, correlation isn't causation, but it certainly pushes along that narrative. In the USA at this time of year, they're at 105% of the average amount of deaths. So like a little bit more, but still not. It's not a pandemic, you know. It really isn't. We're not experiencing an excess number of deaths. Basically, people who were likely to die or at a high risk of dying, they're the ones who have died. And they may
every year.
They may have died anyway, you know. Yeah. And the evidence is certainly pushing forward that is that is very, very more and more likely, higher and higher probability.
Did you ever see that video that came out of Wuhan? It was a very interesting video, and I've spoken about it on the Report from Tiger Mountain with David Thrussell in one of the videos I've done with him. What it was a kind of Chinese communist apparatchik walking through a part of Wuhan, and she was taking Western media and like Asian media through, right? And then all the people in the housing commission flats in Wuhan were screaming out things like, "It's fake. This is fake. Nothing happened here." Like, and of course, instantly the Guardian and stuff. They were saying they were saying it's fake and stuff in relation to what this woman was taking them on, that they were kind of, trying to fix the problem, or that they were ignoring it. But it seemed to me, from the video, which I saw uncut originally when it went online, it seemed to me that the people in the housing commission flats were saying that the virus scare that came out of Wuhan was fake completely, that it was staged, that like they had people in suits and that like. And
I remember
somehow,
this, yes. Maybe
some of them, try and find that online and chuck it online.
I still don't trust anything that comes out of China, that or official government
screaming
propaganda.
it out. It just seemed, and a lot of them too. And I noticed too when I went back to watch that video, it had been edited. It had been edited to, it's fake or something. But people saying nothing at all happened here. Like in English, they were saying it because they wanted us to hear it. So very suspicious.
Well, what you need to remember about Wuhan, Wuhan was the flashpoint for the other protests that we didn't hear much about last year. Mm-hmm. So in 2019, in July, there was huge protests in Wuhan over the levels of pollution. So there was lots of pollution. They were putting a new incinerator there to basically just burn all the crap. And everyone rose up and saying, look, we've got enough pollution as it is without you basically burning all of the shit that you don't like and making us even sicker. So people in Wuhan were not particularly healthy in the first place, and the Chinese government didn't give a crap about them then, and were basically smacking down the protests for saying, you're killing us all with all of this pollution here. Yeah. So it is kind of very sus that, after event 201 in November last year, where they simulated the coronavirus, of which there was a Chinese representative there, they went back, and then literally a month, sorry, it was October last year, it's event 201. Within a month, they've got this new virus, new thing, which remember the videos started coming out. The original videos were coming out were people dropping dead on the street. Yep. They were walking along healthy 1 minute and then they died the next.
Well, that was allegedly coronavirus.
Allegedly coronavirus. Now, we haven't seen that anywhere since.
No.
But that was the original scare story that was put in the media. Oh, there's this terrible new virus. People are dropping dead in the streets. They're walking along fine 1 minute. They're dead the next. That narrative has changed completely. We don't see that anymore.
I first saw footage too when they began to try and clean up. People were walking around. I mean, the Chinese authorities were walking around in full hazmat suits. You know what I mean? And yet our police are like just walking up to people who might have it and going, "Oh, come with us," or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, how does it go from a full hazmat suit and there were videos of people like releasing some kind of disinfectant fog onto the streets and into the air. It was that serious,
And they built this massive temporary hospital, which just happened to have bars on all of the windows.
And the ones they built in there, the US, those temporary camp-style hovels, but they weren't used. And remember the hysteria that New York was going to run out of ventilators. And I remember what's his name? I was about to say Chris Cuomo. He's the CNN Cuomo, Fredo, Andrew Cuomo. He was asked, how come you're still asking for ventilators if you've got enough? He's like, yeah, we've got enough for now, but we need to ensure we order more to keep up. Yeah. So sort of saying, we've got a stockpile already. We just need more to stockpile. That's what this is all about, which was interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah, well, there was lots of people riding around the hospitals the day after mainstream news showed people queuing outside of them, saying, "Where are the bloody queues? These queues have been staged. Look, here I am. Here's the tent. I'm walking in it. It's empty. There's nobody here now."
Yeah, don't forget the NHS nurses working around the clock. They had so much time that they were able to make all those choreographed TikTok videos with using up all the PPE. Because remember with this, and we're learning this, a lot of people are learning this now with the masks, the cloth masks, you do have to clean them, and the single-use masks, you have to throw them out afterwards, and they're not cheap. So...
Yeah, well, you wonder whether this whole push for mandatory masks is because they've ordered too many and they've got to get rid of them somehow.
Yeah, it's all very suspicious. I mean, there's just so many irregularities. I mean, to me, when this event began, it felt like 9/11. It felt suspicious to begin with. You know what I mean? And then the narrative that the government wants pushed out. And it's a much bigger event than 9/11. 9/11 was just dropping down a couple of buildings in New York City. That's relatively easy. This is entirely global. It's entirely globalist, and clearly the alliance between the globalists and China has really become to the fore. And I believe this is asymmetrical warfare. And there have been many books on asymmetrical warfare, non-linear warfare, which is different kind of warfare techniques. And you can tell Trump knows. Trump has the NSA and the deep military intelligence telling him what's going on. He knows America's under attack. He can't come out and fully say it. That's to panic people, but he knows what's going on, and obviously for the first couple of months maybe he didn't, and I think probably that word's gotten around now to Boris and ScoMo as well, and that's why their attitudes have changed.
Boris has been, he's the one pushing mandatory masks now.
Well, he nearly died.
He's a traitorous bastard as well.
Well, there was a photograph that came out of him and Ghislaine Maxwell. You know what I mean?
There we go.
Yeah, she's had a photograph with everybody.
This is how it works. I mean, this is how it works. I mean, this is how they own the politician. It's not as if like Jeffrey Epstein was just one person going around doing this. There are many operations like, obviously Jimmy Savile was probably an operation like that. You know what I mean? And there are many such operations all around the world of which we just happen to have caught the Epstein one. So this is, this is why the importance of it, because, it's hard to make a politician or a governor or a Victorian premier betray his country or whatever. So you need an operation like that to do it. And that's what's going on.
She's stayed alive now, Ghislaine Maxwell. She appeared before, federal court in New York. Her trial is not until July 2021, so she's got to stay alive for another
long time away.
Yeah.
Why does it take so long to bring her to trial?
And apparently,
are they waiting for the elections to be over?
There's been no photographs of her too. Have you noticed that? I haven't seen
No, there was a sketch of her.
Yeah, a sketch, but it didn't really look like her, to be honest. But I mean, she might look a little slightly different now.
A bit haggard.
Yeah, maybe. Well, you would be, wouldn't you? I guess.
There's also.
How do you actually pronounce the name anyway? What's the proper pronunciation?
Ghislaine. It's like Elaine, but with a G. Yeah.
Ghislaine. Is it?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
It's written Ghislaine.
Ghislaine or Ghislaine.
Ghislaine, yeah. Ghislaine, she's obviously the daughter of the Mossad spy, Robert
Maxwell.
Yeah, the actual evil media mogul. All the evil.
The guy who stole $1 billion worth of pension funds before he mysteriously died. Yes.
The James Bond movie Tomorrow Never Dies with the evil media mogul. Elliot Carver. Everyone thinks it's based on Rupert Murdoch, but it's not. It's based on Robert Maxwell, including the end where it's
there is also a Jeffrey Archer book which is sort of based on both of them.
What do you think those guys like Jeffrey Archer and Ian Fleming? What do you think they're doing when they're writing about organisations like Suppression? I mean, they're warning us. I mean, it's been in art and culture since World War II. They're warning us that there's this evil kind of internationalist clique that are out to destroy Western civilization. And, it is Spectre, literally, that is behind this event. And also, too, if you want to even take it to, Get Smart, it's chaos. You know what I mean? It's real, guys. And people think you're crazy when you say things like that. But, you look at someone like George Soros. If he's not like Blofeld, all the guy needs is a white cat in a volcano hideout, and he's all set, isn't he?
We've got a question on entropy from Anxious Aussie. As you're all experts, can you please outline the short and long-term sequel of SARS-CoV-2 infection for symptomatic and asymptomatic folk? Quick Google it. So, Stephen, you wrote the book. I know Anxious Aussie's position.
So, does he want to know how that's going to play out, or what? I'm not quite getting his question. Or does he want to know what the symptoms are, or what?
Yes, asymptomatic and symptomatic.
What's the difference?
Well,
you don't have it, and then
asymptomatic. It means you're walking around as normal and healthy because you're normal and healthy, and symptomatic is you've got pneumonia.
It's supposed to be some sort of gotcha question by anxious
Is
Aussie.
it? Oh, okay.
Doesn't really work, does it?
It doesn't really work, no.
Yeah, but the thing
Like,
is,
I mean, the symptoms, the symptoms of the supposed disease.
I was told that I didn't pronounce it properly. Sequelae, is that how you say it?
What is that another word for Ghislaine? Is it?
No.
Sequelae.
Sequuelae.
What's sequelae? Sorry, I missed that.
What are we talking about? Who is this?
Well,
Moving on.
All right, yeah.
What is sequelae, Tim? I'm sorry.
Well, they did.
You've said this word and I've no idea what it means.
Well, they did. Well, I think that's what they were asking us to Google. So, well, let's follow that instruction.
Google
A condition which is the consequence of a previous disease or injury.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because all right, the condition. Yeah, well,
underlying symptoms, basically.
Yeah. Well. Here's the answer to that question. Yes, if you get sick, it makes it likely that you will get sick with something else. That's just normal. Yep. Like if you get the flu and your lungs get damaged because you have secondary bacterial pneumonia, yes, the rest of your life, you'll probably be fucked.
All right. I think that's answered there.
Moving on.
I want to, you spoke just before, Richard, about that there's probably other sex trafficking operations, and one that has really attracted people's attention, including Stephen's. It seems to be that this Wayfair company, this carpentry company and shipper, seems to be the new comic ping pong pizza, which of course came to prominence in Pizzagate. So I've got the definitions up here. So waif means it either means a homeless child, an extremely thin and unusually young woman, and then fare means the price charged to transport a person, a paying passenger on a public conveyance, material provided for use, consumption, or enjoyment.
Wow, it's a convenient title, isn't it? I mean, it's. I saw that break on social media. Like when I first heard it, I thought, "What? That sounds like bullshit." Anyway, I looked into it, and then I went on the site, and there they were. They were like crappy cabinets you'd get at IKEA for $100, selling for like $50,000, $100,000, and then I literally saw them go down from $100,000 to like $50. Like they were on that site, they were dropping the prices on the items. Like oh shit, people know quickly, get the fucking IT community. Like it clearly was. It took them about 24 hours or maybe even 48 hours to change the prices for like a $50, $100.
Did they change the names of the cabinets? Because I mean they named all of these cabinets that
after abducted people, and then some of the abducted people did turn up, but then again, that's the thing about human trafficking though, when someone is trafficked, they might not even know they're being trafficked. They might be an adult prostitute, for example, or at least a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old prostitute or something, and then whoever's their pimp says, get on whatever Twitter right now and say, I'm fine, what is this about me being abducted and blah blah blah? Oh, that's nonsense. I'm fine. I'm having a great time. So there you go. That doesn't necessarily mean it's still not going on, because there are many people who are on things like the porn tubes and stuff. They've found out are people who've been human trafficked, etc., etc. So just because someone might appear to be free in a video doesn't mean there's not someone behind the camera with a gun. Or there are various different ways that people are human trafficked, and it's not always heavy muscle, but it often is. But
the thing I found most sus was there wasn't just cabinets, there was a pillow.
Yeah.
Like an ordinary looking pillow going for $10,000.
Give me a break.
And you're like, so I mean, look, if they are innocent, let's innocent until proven guilty and all the rest of it. But if they are innocent, they're still sus as fuck.
I agree, it's sus as fuck. And the other interesting thing too is when it broke, you instantly went to what's it called, Snopes, and they already were denying it, but there hadn't been an investigation. The story had broken only
that's the same with the Pizzagate.
Denying it.
the Comet Ping Pong. It was just basically all the mainstream media just yelling at their audience, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake, it's not true at all, there's no basis, end of story there. And of course because they
investigated it fully before they said that.
Yes,
but there's no investigation
like mainstream media does, you know.
And it was also too very strange when Notre Dame burnt down, and it was declared not to be arson while it was still burning, like 6 or 7 hours after the fire started. People are going, "Oh, it's not arson." It's not, they fucking know. You know, this is one of the giveaways of the cabal, I think, that they overplay their hand with their media. Like, you know, they what's it called? Release information too early. They're all in lockstep too early about something. There's clearly no investigation. There's been no time for anyone to really know what's going on, and yet already Snopes has the information up there. I mean, how is that possible?
I don't know. Yeah, people still fall for it. This is the thing.
It's extraordinary.
You know, it's almost like they don't care anymore. It's like they might have started off being careful. We'll get away with it. Who gives a fuck? You know.
And they do get away with it.
They'll buy it. You know.
That's the amazing thing is they really do get away with it.
There was the Black Lives Matter one, which I mentioned. Was it on your show, Tim? On the show where I mentioned about the, or it might have been the XYZ thing, where basically when one of the cities was supposedly burning because of all of these riots that were going on, rather than actually show footage of it actually burning, they decided to get the opening footage out of a zombie movie and just play that.
I remember they used that trick using other footage. I think where it was from when the Syria
from COVID.
From the Syrian conflict as well. Yeah, but it's a common practice for them to just... And this is the thing, that it's so easy for... not just on social media now, for... what purports to be images of a current event is from something else. Now the mainstream media is doing it. And, well, we're seeing the New York Times coming up, given that they had one of their centrist journalists, Barry Weiss, resign. And apparently she was called a Nazi by her colleagues at the New York Times. And remember, their opinion editor had to resign because...
everyone's a Nazi, except the people who are the Nazis, which is the globalists. So, you know, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, are they calling a centrist Jewish woman a Nazi? It's like, you know, that's where we're at right now. I mean, J.K. Rowling is a Nazi, apparently.
No, she's
really?
Yeah, she's a hateful bigot.
I had no idea that 80 or 90% of people in the Western world are Nazis. It's like, wow, who knew, you know? It's ridiculous, mate, you know, and it's all projection with these people, isn't it? I mean, they always accuse everybody of what they're guilty of, you know what I mean? Like, look what's, you know, and it's all about misdirection and projection with them, you know. It's ridiculous.
I was going to say their opinion editor had to resign for running an op-ed by a Republican senator, and... You know, people are sick to death of this shit, aren't they? I mean, you know,
I wish they were.
You know,
I wish they were.
Well, not enough, obviously, but I think there is a large amount of people that know what's going on. But obviously, you know, I mean, the whole problem is that mainstream media really is controlled by this cabal, and it's strange too because, you know, obviously in America, you know how they control it, right? I mean, everyone knows who owns U.S. media, but like it's strange that the BBC are going along with it because technically the British government. So is everyone blackmailed by a kind of Epstein operation? I guess when you see Jimmy Savile, you think, well, maybe. And then in Australia, everyone here goes along with it at the ABC. And even like, you know, I mean, the Liberal and Labor leader are basically on the same page. I mean, you've got dictator Dan, who's, you know, really, you know, pushing hard for China. He's gone a bit off tap maybe, but, you know, like, it seems to be like there are two types of politician we have. There's the people who want to bring in the New World Order fast, say someone like Dictator Dan, and those who want to bring in a little slower. You know what I mean? Or maybe the rest. You know? Yeah,
it reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Kang and Kodos take over the bodies of Bill Clinton and Bob Dole, and at the end of it, they say, you know, who are you? Well, who are you going to vote for? This is a two-party system, and Ross Perot throws his hat down and stamps on it. And the next scene, they're all in chains, pulling on some rock or other, and And Marge says, look what's happened. And Homer says, don't blame me. I voted for Kodos.
Although the third-party offerings in the 2020 U.S. presidential election are not much better than the two frontrunners.
Well, you know.
You mentioned J.K. Rowling there,
Yes.
Richard. Now, because they're attempting to cancel her over her views on transgenderism and what it means to be a woman. Are they going to start burning their Harry Potter books now? Those in the UK.
Well, there are a lot of women on the left who have thought this. I mean, Germaine Greer, for example, said this.
She's
ago.
a senile old hag, though. She's hardly credible.
Well, regardless, she said something like this. She said, "There's no way that a 40-year-old man can decide one day he's a woman and then know what it's like to be a woman." And she was actually quite correct in that. Yeah, and then also someone like Camille Paglia, who's somebody, I guess, she's done a lot of talks with Jordan Peterson and right-wing people like that, but she's someone still maybe of the left in some ways. She's deeply suspicious of all this bullshit. And then the very fact that they're crucifying one of their own darlings. I mean, J.K. Rowling was a darling of the New Left until recently.
She
was somebody who was like, oh, let in all the refugees and, blah, 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 all that bullshit. And then, now they've come to, basically burn her at the stake. It's like they eat themselves. That's the hilarious thing. They eat themselves. They burn themselves at the stake. It's like the French Revolution. And, it's like, who ended up under the guillotine? Robespierre and, all the fucking original revolutionaries, right?
The useful idiots.
She made Dumbledore retrospectively gay. That was the big, her big sort of, I would say, that was stunning and brave when she did it. It was more than 10 years ago now, because I remember Rove was still on the air when that happened. It's interesting, isn't it? Like that they praise her for that, and then she says, well, there's no you did make Dumbledore gay, and that okay, you have your own opinion about trans, and all right, we'll move on. No, straight to the straight onto the pyre, please, Miss J.K. Rowling. It's extraordinary. She's an author who's as big selling as fucking Stephen King. I mean, she's not like a small concern who's self-publishing in like her garden shed. I mean, she's a fucking institution. Yeah. So this is broken in the. This is. Oh, I'll get it up full screen here. This is from Pink News. UK's biggest cervical cancer charity shuts down disgustingly transphobic lie that only females get cervical cancer. I mean,
a headline like that. I mean, I'm a 50-year-old guy who's run nightclubs and lived a fairly. I don't even understand what they mean by that. I mean, what do they mean? Only a biological female can get cervical cancer. I mean, how can a biological male get that? I don't understand the logic of it. Like,
does he get a surgical cervix, or what does he get?
And also, too, something like a male disease, like what's it called, prostate cancer. I mean, if a transgender, if a man who is biologically male, what's it called?
Male to female, transition.
Whatever the fucking bullshit term is, transitions into being a woman, and he still gets. So that means females get. What's it called?
Cervical cancer?
Prostate cancer. So,
prostate cancer. Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, is that a gift to women? So now women get. I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I see headlines like that, I have to sit there and think, hang on a minute, did he start a war? Like, it's just the very fact that we're basically on the verge of World War III, and this is a major topic of discussion. This goes to show how deeply fallen our societies are. I mean, my grandfather fought in World War II against the Japanese. If you saw our society today, I think, well, he'd die again, definitely. But I think he'd get his old mates together and think, what the fuck is going on? I mean, how collapsed have our civilizations got that this is the main topic of discussion? Seriously, boys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But there's actually more important things going on than that. There's the boycott against Goya beans, because the CEO of Goya beans said nice things about Trump. I'd never heard of this brand. It's apparently an Hispanic bean brand. There's Trump with it.
For Goya's everywhere.
And there's Ivanka with Goya as well. And
Goya, it'd be like a kid, new Radiohead album.
And,
Go ahead.
And it's the current CEO's grandfather was an immigrant who made this. Made up this company, and obviously serves the Latina population of the US, but it just shows the level of combination of Trump derangement syndrome and cancel culture that they'd get their knickers in a knot over some beans, or maybe they're soiling their knickers with some beans.
Well, it's time to can. It's time to can cancel culture. I mean, everybody's sick of it. I mean, I've been a victim of it myself. You know, I made that comment about the, gay marriage thing with the yes and no vote. Obviously, I'm in the arts scene, so everybody's a screaming leftist generally on the arts. And I supported no mainly as a troll. I didn't really have a horse in the race, really, so I didn't really care that much either way. I did suspect that if yes won, it would be like, taught in schools, and, it would be a kind of indoctrination in schools afterwards, which, of course, that was not going to happen. And, of course, it did. But, and then I made some comment after the yes vote won, and then it went viral within the film community, and I had about 200 people attacking me for about a week or whatever. And it's this bullshit, this stuff. Like John Ronson really wrote a great book on it, does a really great TED talk on it, and people have known for a long time, even people on the left have known this is extremely poisonous, cancel culture, and it's coming for, as I said, it's coming for themselves. I mean, how many liberals, small L liberals, have had cancel culture come after them now?
I just hope that as they're all gay and transitioning and basically no longer having sex with male female anymore, that at least within a generation there'll be no more new ones of them.
I've started watching the Mrs. America miniseries, which has Cate Blanchett as Phyllis Schlafly, and her campaign against the Equal Rights Amendment, which thank God didn't get ratified in the US Constitution. And she, back in the 1970s, one of her arguments against the ERA was that it would abolish gender and lead to unisex bathrooms. They're like, as if, well, we're in 2020 now. It didn't take an ERA for that.
I find the whole transgender issue to be, to a large extent, to be a nonsense, to be a kind of distraction, and particularly for the left to be pushing it too, because economic inequity. Which to me, if the left has an actual legitimate agenda, it's about addressing issues of economic inequity. The fact that it gets bogged down in this absolutely kind of ridiculous subsection of the LGBT community. And it becomes like a major issue. I mean, if Karl Marx was around today, he'd think, "What the fuck are you doing? Why are you obsessed with this?" You know what I mean? There are 100 people on the planet that have more money than the bottom 3 or 4 billion, and that was like 5 years ago. So now it's probably 60 and 5 billion. I don't know, but the elite have amassed power, and clearly they've decided to get rid of us all, at least to begin to get rid of us all, and the first dish on the menu, ladies and gentlemen, is 2020. So, this is like the appetizer, or maybe whet the appetite, for the elite, that cleanse the palate. This is 2020 is cleansing the palate. God knows what's going to come next.
Well, they have been pushing for quite a while the idea of depopulation and of a sustainable planet with 500 million people on them.
1968, the population.
Since 1968,
yeah,
that's when it became popular. But they've never really abandoned that idea, and they've tried lots of various schemes to gradually bring about a reduction in population and various things going on. And obviously, they've failed non-stop along the way, because we've grown to 7.7 billion and we've got more food and resources than ever before.
Yep.
But a lot of it's, a lot of the sort of, especially the trans gay B, G, Q, X, Y, alphabet soup stuff, seems to be about sort of undermining reproduction as much as possible. As well as the climate change thing, as well as the accusation about some of the vaccination programs that are going on, which obviously from our standpoint we can't verify or refute properly, but certainly one has to be suspicious when major players who are involved in this kind of stuff have openly said, yes, we need to reduce the population of the planet or we're all going to die, kind of thing. Whereas the main reason for reducing the population of the planet isn't to save the planet from us, is to save the planet for themselves. They want, fewer people. That's why they have all of these natural zones and all of these nature zones and all of these national parks and how they've been the World Wildlife Heritage areas and all of these kind of things, that they've been pushing that because they basically want to return to an era where the royalty has its estate, where only they can hunt the deer, and all of the peasants need to stay out of the forest because that belongs to the kings, and you need to survive on gruel whilst we go and eat venison.
Yeah,
or the new kind of new feudalism, and it's extraordinary that it's people aren't awake to it. I mean, again, the media is the main.
The gruel they're promoting these days is the bugs. Remember all those lifestyle travel food programs. It's not gruel anymore. It's bugs. Because
it's slimy but satisfying.
Because we've also got to give up meat because of the cow farts in climate change.
I've travelled in Southeast Asia and I've had an opportunity to eat those bugs. You can eat every kind of bug known to man. I was not interested, Thank you very much. I think people in those countries, I think obviously have gone through periods of great starvation. So they maybe growing up in their rural communities, maybe did eat bugs, or, it was something that was to get some protein or something for them, or a bit like an Aborigine might eat a witchery grub or something. It's just not something Westerners are going to get into. And of course they try and push it, on the hipsters, and I guess a few, hipsters do, try the odd, cricket or tarantula or something.
How good was eating bats, the exotic bats? How well did that turn out?
Yeah,
well, I don't think that worked out too well, did it?
Which goes to my point.
Which I doubt anyway, but still.
I want to bring up a point about those bats. I mean, how is it that it's taken until 2020 for people eating bats to suddenly produce a pandemic? I mean, haven't Chinese people been eating bats forever?
I brought that point up online to many people. I mean, they've been eating bats for 2,000 fucking years.
And they've always had pandemics. The Hong Kong flu most likely originated in China. SARS in 2002.
Dogs,
Asian flu, 57, 58. I mean, it's because we're a globalized world now. That's why it traveled so quickly. That's why
that's why we have to shut down the airline industry and all tourism and just kill our economies. Yeah, I know.
Extraordinary.
Yes, because that's as we've been pointing out, that's the trend. As soon as there's a uptick, just shut it all down again, and you can achieve elimination. WA can continue to keep the virus eliminated.
Yeah, as long as we all stay in our homes and don't travel anywhere, don't do anything, we can eliminate death forever. An old person will never ever die again.
Yeah.
We will never have any more death in WA thanks to the lockdown. No one will ever die, ever.
It's extraordinary nonsense, isn't it? I think the people that need to be shut down and put in lockdown are the globalists, but who's going to do it? They seem to exist to a large extent kind of above politicians and above the police force and people like this. I mean, people for a long time were turning their back on people like Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein and all these kind of people. And, it's like... how do you go after people that seem to exist at a level of wealth and power above our actual legal systems? And also they're international. They can, if they have a bit of heat in one country, they fuck off somewhere else. Extraordinary.
Yeah, I have no opinions on that which are allowed to be aired.
Yes, there you go.
On YouTube.
On YouTube.
On anywhere. Anywhere where a security personnel type person might hear me.
Because in YouTube, Cull News this week, we've had Roosh.
Don't use that word on YouTube.
Roosh V.
Not after what we just said. Don't use that word, Cull.
Cull. You would say terminated. They violated the very fair and reasonable community guideline standards. How's that?
Who's this? Roosh.
Roosh V, he's one of the MRAs. Max Egan, who I interviewed on Wilmsfront, he was kicked off YouTube last week.
Max Egan was great.
And so Martin Sellner, the Austrian nationalist. He was also kicked off as well, married to Brittany Pettibone. So
Extraordinary.
dropping like flies at the moment.
Stephen Molyneux they got rid of. I mean, Paul Joseph Wattson's a lot harder to find, even when you search for these people. Now, like, you know, I mean,
he's had
when
a
you
few...
used to search Paul Joseph Watson, you would just get his videos. Now, like, you know, you get people critiquing him. Like, you see that, like, Google are clearly in lockstep against these kind of new right figures of the new right and stuff. And it's absolutely extraordinary. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And mainstream media never touches it. It's like,
if you type in, because as you know, I interviewed Katie Hopkins recently. If you type in Katie Hopkins interview, it goes into like all of her mainstream interviews where apparently she was destroyed by the interviewer. That's what shows up.
When I interviewed Fraser Anning on the Report for Tiger Mountain, that video was actually one of the few videos where Fraser Anning just sat down for 20 minutes and spoke, and he didn't come across as a crank or a radical at all. And everyone who saw that video really loved it. But again, if you search it, it's well hidden. You know, it's like they know about these things and they don't want people to see them, and so they hide them. You know, and that's the extraordinary thing. I mean, this is another very interesting thing. You know that phrase? It's a quote attributed to Voltaire. It's like, what is it exactly? It's to find out who rules over you. Find out who you can't criticize.
Yeah.
Now, that was originally attributed to Voltaire. Now, I don't think the quote, it's kind of apocryphal. It's something that Voltaire kind of might have said.
It was said by somebody else.
Not a direct quote. He said something kind of like it. Now, when I first Googled that 10 or 15 years ago, all the links to it were to basically Voltaire. And that, you know, it was kind of apocryphal, though. It's not actually in his writings. It's you know, there are many apocryphal quotes from many famous people. But anyway, you Google it now, it's attributed to some weird neo-Nazi in the late 90s. And there are about 15 or 20 articles on that when you Google that phrase. It's now attributed to some neo-Nazi radical lunatic who's in jail or something, God knows. But, like, he is now the source of the quote.
Yeah, he was some sort of pedophile as well, I think.
Something like that. And that was never on Google at all. It was never... Obviously, they found that quote in some, you know, some neo-Nazi from 30 years ago or whatever. And then they've tried to, like, I don't know, give that quote a bad odor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that if you quote it, you're a stupid head thinking that it's Voltaire.
You know, I know, but still, that's not the point. You know what I mean? And there's so
the point is now, if you quote it at all, you're now also a neo-Nazi because the neo-Nazi was the person who is attributed as saying it.
Exactly. You see, you know what I mean? So it's incredibly that really was scary to me. And you know, and it's like another interesting thing. You know, I mean, I've had this theory about if there is a real path to the virus. You know, I saw this guy by the name of Dr. Charles Lieber. He was a microbiologist and a nanobiologist, and he works at Harvard University, and he was going back and forth between the Wuhan lab, and he's been arrested by Trump for receiving money from China and espionage, kind of a loose espionage charge, and the details of it are not really made that specific. Anyway, you know, like if you put that guy's name, and I thought maybe he's the guy who invented the virus, you know, I mean, because maybe, you know, if it is a kind of bioweapon, you know, maybe it was something a little bit beyond China's reach. Anyway, you put in Charles Lieber, did he create the virus? There are 100 sites saying he didn't, right? 100, look it up, right? I mean, if it wasn't him, there'd be Snopes and a few others maybe who'd say it, but there are literally 100 sites saying it's not him. It's like they've overplayed their hand again. You know what I mean? Like they're really, oh no, it's definitely not him. You know, I mean, that really tells you maybe well it is. I don't know. I mean that was the thing that made me think, well, maybe there is something to it. It's extraordinary.
Well, the thing about that was they were originally doing research into basically enhancing a virus so that they could research on how to tackle an unknown violent virus which is enhanced. But then it was shut down in the US because they said, well, hang on a minute, that deliberately trying to create a virus so you can study a virus is kind of mad scientist kind of area. We're going to get rid of that. And so they shut it down for a couple of years. But then the charges that the Obama administration then gave money through the CDC to basically transfer that research over to China. And what the guy who's been arrested was part of that research thing, and he's been because it was apparently done under the table.
Yeah.
So it goes up higher. The reason that guy's probably been pushed down is not necessarily because of the of creating a virus, but because by mentioning anything to do with the virus, it brings up a much higher level of corruption where Obama himself is implicated in, after legislation is passed to stop this kind of research, that someone has said, well, we need this kind of research to go on, so can we transfer it to China, please?
Ah, I see. Very interesting. And there's another woman, I think, that's in the Wuhan lab. Her name is Zheng Li. I think Zheng Li, I think the name. You know, I mean, you might know more about her. She's another suspicious character in this mess.
Yeah, I mean, she was the she's one who has been literally doing that research and has been going to collect bat guano from caves to go back and create and enhance viruses with. So
there you go.
Yeah,
she could be Madam Death, you know.
She could be Madam Death. She could be, but you know, whatever they've created, if they have created something, it's obviously not been as deadly as they wanted it to be.
Yeah, I agree,
because it just hasn't done what it's, you know, which just shows that there is incompetence in the conspiracy. That
it gives us all hope. That gives us all hope.
It gives us all hope because they're trying to create this killer virus and it hasn't worked.
Yeah, it's still transmitted the same as the flu through droplets. You were talking about before somebody walking past you, Richard, and saying not social distancing. Droplets don't come out of your sides. They come out the front when you cough or sneeze. Of course. And there's been all this fake news in Assyria about it being airborne. How many times has that been reported on?
Exactly. Again, like with China, when we first heard about this virus, we saw people in hazmat suits walking down the street, like spraying disinfectant into,
they did that too.
Into like the air, as if the whole air is infected. Again, that looked like a psyop. You know, it looked like
Peter Dutton's office was deep cleaned when he got the coronavirus in hazmat suits, even though on objects and surfaces, it's a very low risk of transmission unless someone sneezes into their hand and starts going on the railing with the droplets in their hand. That's the only way that you can get the virus from surfaces.
You know, it's a load of bullshit. And, you know, and also to the way that I guess the officials that we're supposedly supposed to be listening to, and I've spoken to to people who believe the mainstream narrative, they've been told about 10 different things since the start of this crisis. I mean,
so which one are you supposed to believe?
Exactly.
So they're obviously lying or incompetent on at least one of the things they've told us.
No, exactly.
You know, because because when they contradict themselves, they can't be right on everything.
No, exactly. And this is
there's another thing that people should look into on their own time is terrain theory. So at the moment we've had basically Rockefeller induced medical system for about 100 years now, but there was a different theory of how disease was spread, which is called terrain theory, which basically says germs aren't spread by basically people coughing and sneezing on each other. It's spread, it's more of a manifestation of things in the environment. And I'm not going to sort of say it's, you know, come down on either side of that at the moment. But when these sort of events happen and you start going, well, there's the so-called experts are just talking bullshit and they're contradicting each other and everything else. Where are the real experts? And you go and start looking up some real doctors and some real researchers and stuff. And then you start hearing lots and lots of different theories. And you realize that just like in climate change, the science is not settled. And there's a lot of very, very hard debate and a very hard research into the, you know, so for example, there's a theory that viruses don't actually spread from person to person. Viruses are the body's immune response to pollutants in the environment that everyone is around. And one of the questions you have to ask yourself isn't why are 1% of the population dying? It's why are 98% of the population not getting sick in the first place?
It's true. You know, I mean, there's just so many different I guess
we focus on the 1%. We're focusing on the anomaly without trying to understand how most people stay healthy through
and we're
all
not,
kinds of contagions.
In Australia, we're not remembering 900 people died from the flu last year. We didn't shut down the whole of Australia, and I've been quite open that I had the flu last winter. It was absolutely horrible. David Hiscock got it, Matty Rose got it, Neil Erickson got it, Blair Cottrell got it. We have no idea who patient zero is, but we clearly all gave it to each other, which shows, also demonstrates contact tracing, the complex task of that as well, because we don't know who patient zero was.
Yeah.
Or if you're looking at terrain theory says you all got the flu because you're stupid enough to live in Melbourne.
Well, another thing that popped into my mind, because apparently the air conditioning that can actually cause a flu-like infections. We had a theory because we had our studio a split system. Air conditioner and heater. We had a theory since we all were in the studio for Uncuckables, whether there was some sort of bioweapon attack where they put some sort of toxin in the
fungus would be the most likely fungal spores. If that is a cause of everyone getting sick, fungal spores are very, very common, and air conditioning units, because they're basically you've got condensed water freezing on the pipes and then dust buildup. You get a lot of fungal spores, which then get blown into things. So that could be a possibility. You know, it's a hypothesis.
Yeah, which it means that you should get fresh air rather than stay inside and put on the artificial air.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And you know, obviously you got to get out and exercise and do that kind of thing. And you know, I haven't always done that. I didn't always do that in the first lockdown, but in the second one I'm doing it a lot more.
And don't wear a mask when you're exercising by yourself, because the actual advice is only wear a mask if you feel that you cannot socially distance. So all the Karens exercising, taking their dog for a walk, like the Karen in New York Central Park, why is she wearing a mask when there's clearly no one in sight?
Yeah, well, she's also likely to get hypoxia and kill herself from carbon dioxide poisoning. So,
can I recommend this book to people on the show? I'm going to do a report from Tiger Mountain on it. It's called The War for Eternity by Benjamin Teitelbaum. It's the return of traditionalism and the rise of the populist right. It's actually kind of sympathetic to its cause. It examines Steve Bannon, Alexander Dugin, René Guénon, the traditionalist philosopher René Guénon, and Julius Evola. It's really, really fascinating. It's out locally, so in Australia and overseas, obviously, so highly recommended. And there's a report from Tiger Mountain coming on this sooner than later. I just wanted to give it a plug, so it's great.
Sure, I'll check it out.
Check it out. Is that it?
Yeah, we're getting to, well, it's just, we did start late and have that delay, but we are past 10 o'clock now. I've got a few more things about cancel culture, but that can probably wait till another time. Yeah. Well, the Twitter hack is the other major news story, with all the blue tick accounts getting hacked asking for bitcoins.
Yeah. Well, so what? I mean, who would have done that?
I don't know, but it's funny.
Some hacker. Yeah, it's funny.
Some fucking idiot. Next.
I want to bring up another bit of trivia news.
Go ahead.
Which is the a bit of good news as well, and a bit of hope for Western civilization going forward.
Let's do that. Yes, let's have some of that.
Which is the 6-year-old boy who defended his younger sister from a dog, which attacked him. He's had like 100 stitches in his face, and asked about the situation. He says, well, he saw the dog coming. He thought that one of them was going to die, and he thought it better be him rather than his sister.
That's the spirit. That's how we'll defeat the cabal, ladies and gentlemen.
That's how you defeat the cabal, is by being prepared to sacrifice for a greater good.
And we should also pay tribute to that Indianapolis mother who was shot and killed after getting into an argument about Black Lives Matter, simply because she said all lives matter.
Unbelievable.
Her young infant is going to grow up without a mother, and she's still getting a racial abuse online in her death.
I've seen like about 100 videos of just white people basically in America who are either like just, being accosted by Black Lives Matter and then someone walks up behind them and King hits them. It's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, the George Floyd incident. I mean, originally when I first saw the first incident, I thought, well, that's not good, the poor guy. And yet, now it's just an avalanche of attacks upon white people. I mean, if this is meant to create sympathy for Black Lives Matter, I think it's created the opposite, ladies and gentlemen.
It's also why we shouldn't live with each other.
Yeah. Before we finish, Anxious Aussie wants to have another whack at you, Stephen. Please name some of these doctors you're referring to. 0 references except Ferguson's paper. Have you read Stephen's book, Anxious Aussie? You called him a grifter in the live chat. Have you actually read it? Got a copy? Will you answer Anxious Aussie's question if you will?
Me? Who the fuck?
No, I'm talking to Stephen.
And who gives a shit?
I've no idea who he is. And do I have references on hand? No, I don't.
Read the fucking book.
My book isn't about terrain theory. I'm just pointing out that there are various doctors out there who you can get different opinions from.
Dr. Erickson.
All right, I'm going to go, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to finish the show.
Good night.
I was talking about feminine side. I was just also venting my feminine side, my emotional side. I'm back to normal again now. Thanks.
Okay.
Good on you guys. All right, I'm going to go, guys. So rock and roll. All right, talk soon.
Bye.
Nice to see you, mate.
The Uncuckables.